John Arthur, he has a few projects that he has going on here at the church that some of y'all might not be aware of. And he's going to talk about how he was saved, little few things about himself, and then he's going to talk about some of the projects that he has going on here at the church, just to kind of inform everybody about what he's got going on, just in case anybody's not aware, so that everybody kind of keeps up on what these young adults are doing here in the church. And I'm sure some of y'all would be well excited to hear what some of these young people are doing here at the church. So listen up, and Mr. John Arthur, everybody.
Howdy, howdy.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you coming in.
Appreciate you, sir. So, first off, you guys are going to have to forgive my crib notes. 10 years of public speaking in front of people, and I still need notes. I mean, I will legitimately forget points. So, first off, I think I'll get to some of the stuff that we're doing, but I just want to share a testimony first. And what I'm going to say, I talked to Heiko before, kind of threw it out in front. You know, it's good when you're going to go and talk to folks, especially when you're sharing something that you think the Lord has been putting on your heart. It's good to bounce it off someone before you talk before a group like this, because man, it's good to have that sounding board. And he said, you know, you need to make sure that you let people know this is your testimony. This is not something that you're imposing on other people. So what I'm going to say today is stuff that the Lord's been speaking to me, and I hope that it's a blessing. I hope that it's His words and not mine. But before I kind of get into it, first, I'm kind of a guy who likes to get to know everyone. I wish I could get to know everyone in here. A little bit about myself. I have a really boring history. It's only about 27 years. My parents moved here in the 90s. Really cool love story. They met each other in, what was that? November, got married in June, okay? It was a whirlwind romance. The Lord, if you ever want to talk to my dad about it, you'll get a really cool, riveting 45-minute testimony of how the Lord provided to bring them out here, and the Lord guiding and leading them. Really cool story. 4 years later, I was born. Not for lack of trying, they wanted more. They only got me. And then 4 years after that, you know, intentional time of other people investing into me. I was 4 years old. The Lord, drew me to Him. And I'm always cautious of child evangelism. It kind of scares me. And I was a product of it. It took a day from the time I said a sinner's prayer to realize, oh, this is what this means. This is I am going to give up certain things. I'm going to have to change my lifestyle. I have to submit to His mastership, His lordship. And that started, a process that's still being worked out. And, the Lord is working, His mighty work. 8 years old, I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to marry, where I was going to work. I was going to have my PhD by 20 years old, and I was going to go to MIT or Caltech. I had people offering at a young age. I had people offering to get me full rides at about 9, 10 years old. And I knew the work I was going to do for God. Okay. 13 years old, we go down to South America to visit my mom's missionary contacts. She was a missionary kid. So we go down to South America. I get deathly ill, have hospitalization twice, chronic pain afterward, chronic migraines, severe allergies, went through all this, lost all of the scholarships. The Lord was in the process of humbling someone who thought he was going to go out and do something for God. God doesn't need you. He wants you. He wants you to be submitted to Him. So, 20 years of age, I'm plugging along at a business administration degree, doing online stuff while I'm working with a family business. And then the Lord sees fit to allow our home and business burn to the ground. Insurance does not cover it. Funny thing, when one insurance company buys your insurance company and they drop the coverage, you're not covered during that time. And there's no legal liability for the old company. We called our insurance folks while the fire was burning and said, hey, What are we going to do? And they said, sorry. The guy said, I'm not even your agent anymore. You think a judge can let you do this? He says, go ahead, call. So we called a judge. He said, there's been 3 cases just like this. 2 have gone to appellate. They've all been thrown out. You know what? That was a good thing. The Lord has allowed that to speak to so many people. We were sitting there at the fire, and people would walk up to us and say stuff like, so sorry, this and that, and they're, you can see that there's pain in their heart, and we were able to say, look, God is good. It's just things. The Lord's going to provide. Never let an opportunity go to waste, right? Because if you don't share the gospel, and that's really the thing that the Lord's put on my heart in general, is your history, your testimony means something. It means something, and you were given that gift. Even if it's of a 4-year-old who was saved, out of child evangelism, and his mom came and talked to him, and he said a sinner's prayer. Some people have these wonderful testimonies of, I was in drugs, and I was in alcohol, and I did these bad things. I was cruel to my wife. I did this, and then when the Lord came, He changed and miraculously moved me. Well, that's a beautiful testimony. And I've had someone one time said, I wish I had a testimony like that. And I looked at her right in the eyes and I said, hey, there's a bank right down from the corner. You can go rob it, spend 10 years in prison, and you'll have a testimony. Now, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe it's a blessing that you have the testimony you have. So fast forward to 5 years of working with the family business. We're putting together some stuff. I'm in Asia, all over America, doing different things, putting together some factories, trying to build that up. 2020 comes along, wipes it all out. It absolutely tanked the group that we were working with. 2020 was a weird year, right? Can I get an amen? 2020 was a weird year. But I got 3 dream jobs, that one to start with. I got on radio. I was the token conservative on a radio show. But I told the guy I would kill when he said, would you like to be in radio? He asked my dad first. Dad's like, nah, but my son. And so look at him. And the guy asked me, would you like to be on radio? I said, man, I would kill to be the conservative on all these shows, because so many conservatives don't know what they believe. They don't know the story that's brought them to this point. I would love to be that. COVID tanked that radio station. Can you imagine trying to sell radio ads during COVID? Ugh, you can't even see people's face. So then did some political work with the PAC. Got I was a media producer for the PAC. There's a trend here towards storytelling, and I'll tell you, when I was a child, I did not believe in storytelling. I thought actors and writers were just sort of the leeches that kind of rode on the back of society, and they just sort of gleaned the engineers and the scientists. Oh, and the pastors, right? Can't forget the pastors. They're the ones that are actually doing God's work, and everyone is in entertainment or in radio or whatever is, they're just kind of gliding along. It took a little bit of humbling for the Lord to change my path. Had a first patent at 8 years old on an inertial propulsion space drive. You want to talk about that? That's a fun topic. Rocket with no rocket, okay? Being able to keep a satellite in orbit without it falling into apogee. Really cool stuff. But pulling all that in to this last year, we started doing more media stuff with the church. So I found that, and I've been helping with the camera for, I don't know, what has it been, 5 years that we've been doing that for a while now. I forget what it's been. Been helping with that because, of course, why not, right? Everyone serves in a different capacity. But the Lord has really put it on my heart that I need to be a better steward of His story. So, that's a long intro, but now you know everything about me. Okay, so that's my full testimony and history. But I want to talk about why history is important. And there's a really good note in the Bible on this, where God has commanded the children of Israel to put up remembrance stones. Any of y'all remember Joshua? If you don't mind, if I read some verses here out of Joshua. And the Lord said, command the priests to bear the ark of the testimony, that they come up out of the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, come ye up out of Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of the Jordan, the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up unto the dry land, and the waters of the Jordan returned unto their place. This is after walking into the Jordan. The first footstep, earlier on in the chapter, first footstep, dried up the Jordan. And it doesn't say that they were in muddy water, by the way. Some folks will say there was some sort of gale force wind that held the water back. You want to carry a ark of a gold and acacia wood ark of the covenant through mud when that, no, that's miraculous. God gave them a miracle. So what did God tell them to do? They came up out of the Jordan, and he spake, and the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. And they brought stones out of the Jordan. This is something they took out of the center of the miracle that God provided for them. They took a remembrance of that miracle with them as they passed through. Can I just say, don't ever ask God to deliver you out of a situation. Ask Him to deliver you through it.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because what you have when you're done is those stones of remembrance. Mr. Charlie here, talking to Mr. Pomeroy about remembering your history. That is something that he says all the time. Remember from where you've come. And by the way, if you're paying attention, maybe the Lord will bump your course a little bit and you can kind of see where the Lord's leading you. You know, just a thought. That's what the Lord's done for me. And so then those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, when your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean these stones? Then ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry, not muddy, dry land. That's the miracle. He came over on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of Jordan from before you until ye were passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up from before us until we were gone over, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that ye might fear the Lord your God forever. Now I'm going to follow that passage up. And this is normally a no-no, but I think you guys understand what I'm going to. Proverbs 22:28. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. Now, we could do a Bible study on that alone, but I would say that ties well. That concept is applicable for the sake of time. That concept is very applicable. In fact, it's directly aimed at do not change what your father's history has codified in a landmark. Take your landmark and keep it there. God's stones of remembrance in your life. That's your history. That's something that He's given you. Why aren't we just raptured up when we say, Jesus, I love you, forgive me my sins, I submit my life to you, and we're not just snapped up? Because we're bought with a price. And we're meant to glorify Him. What glorifies Him? Let's not be vague. We talk about treasure in heaven. What is treasure in heaven? It's serving the Lord so that others may know Him as you do. Stars in your crown. By the way, that crown, that the stars are people and ministry that you've done that has brought, let me be very careful here, not brought, that the Lord used you. You were standing there, you were a lump on the log when the Lord used your texture or feature on that log to save someone or to be part of their salvation story. That's the stars in your crown. And you know what we do with those crowns? We lay them before Him. That's the act of worship. So our story, our history is so important. And I want to be careful not to elevate it out of its context, but history and story are something that we have sincerely lost, and something that I want to see in my life. I want to be a better storyteller, not for the sake of telling stories, but for the sake of telling his story. You know, the other day I got a new piece of camera gear, and I came to the men's Bible study, and it was that day. Some of you in this room actually saw video of me using that camera right then, right? When we get something new, when we get something exciting in our life, if we get a new car. Any of y'all married in here? Okay, right? Who did not know in your life that you were married or that you were engaged? You know, that she said yes. By the way, if someone comes along and says, well, such and such happened and such and such happened, and that was not how it happened, what wells up in you? But wait just a minute. I met her when she was sitting on the left side of the church and not the right. I took her out to Chili's. I did not take her out to Denny's, right? Whatever the detail is, there is this surge in your being, right? That you say, wait. That's not the story. That's not the truth. Something I've had an issue with. When someone is telling the gospel wrong or smearing it in a different light, do I have that kind of jealousy? Jealousy is a good, envy is not. Jealousy is a good thing. Do I keep that story with that same fervor, saying, wait a minute, no. You have that all wrong. We're bombarded with it. We want to talk about fake news, right? Okay. But there is a false gospel, and the exclusive purpose of that is to take down and destroy the work of God. Do I have that fervor is a question I ask myself. When I see that, do I say, no. Please, let me share this with you. And let me share it in the best way that I possibly can. Let me try to present something so that you can see the glory of God in a way that it seems that you don't see it. Do I have that? That's something that needs to be said and done. And so that's kind of why we're doing more stuff in media. We're doing more stuff. We think we can be part of that storytelling if the Lord would have us there. But again, talking to Heiko, a lot of wisdom in talking to people who are well-versed in the Lord. From that discussion, I got something that I really wanted to make sure I said. Some people are candles, and some people are bonfires. Let me explain that. I'm going to start with asking another question. How many people in this room have shared the gospel with it's a rhetorical question, with an entire stranger this year? Right? It's rhetorical, but I want y'all to think about that. How many people are going to step through heaven's gates and you were in the position, you didn't save them. You were in the position, you were positionally right with God so that you were a vessel for glory. I love your first sermons when you first came here. Are you a chamber pot or are you a pot of honor? That's a graphic representation. But did God use you? Were you usable for that? And so some people will say, well, this person brought 10,000 to the Lord. This person brought 500 to the Lord. This person brought 1 to the Lord. Some people are bonfires, and some people are candles. But the bonfire should never boast over the candle. Because I think a bonfire, well, let me ask you, do you think a bonfire would do a good job lighting a small bedroom? Probably not. It would burn the house down. And on the inverse, some would say, well, the candle cannot stand out in the wind and the rain as a bonfire could. This is true. God made each of us and gave us a specific calling. So we should be about telling that story. We should be about, and that light is the gospel. That light is the gospel. The other thing the Lord's convicted me of recently is don't curse the darkness. The world is not a place of great darkness. It's just, because that's not what darkness is. Darkness is an absence of light.
Yep. Right. Yep.
The world is not a place of great darkness. It's a place that is abysmally in lack of light.
Yes.
So let's be that. And that doesn't mean don't run up to someone and yell, do you know Jesus? If you're going to die tomorrow, hey, you know what? If the Lord's telling you to do that, go for it. But that's not what I'm saying. Discipleship, getting to know people, being that light in their life. And by the way, you can't be alienated from this person if you're going to be the light in their life, right? You have to maintain and hold true the gospel. And that's something that I've really struggled with. I let so many people go by where I think about it afterward and I say, God, forgive me. I could have said something more. I could have done something more. Or God, forgive me. Oh my goodness, I've not been in your word. That was a botch. Please forgive me, and may you work in spite of me. Let's make sure that I love the way Josh said it. You're a tool in the toolbox. Your sharpness and your preparedness dictate how usable you are to the master craftsman. That's the end of the day. Someone the other day called me out in church about a prayer of salvation. Can I suggest that is the worst thing that you can do to someone? If someone says, so and so prayed a prayer with me, and then everyone else comes out and does this. Good on you. You good work with that person doing this or that. You saved them. You had the gospel. My response to anyone who said that was, nah, I'm just happy I was in the room. And that's what we need to be. We need to be in the room. We need to be light. And that's what we're trying to be. We're doing a few things. We're doing a podcast. We're doing we're trying to create some Christian content, some God-honoring content. At some point, I need to get Pastor Talley in there when we have everything planned out well enough so it feels like he can come in without it being a circus. But we're working on that. But just be in prayer for us, and be in prayer that we're honoring the Lord.
Tell them, John Arthur, where they can hear some of that.
Oh, sure. So we have a podcast right now. It's at provokedtoreason.com, or you can go anywhere where your podcasts are played, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and you'll find Further Every Day, as in we're straying further every day from God and righteousness. But we need to be the stop for that. We need to be the stop against that. So with that in mind, let's make sure that we're telling his story, and that includes our testimony. If you have a testimony, share it. If you have a story, we all do. We have the best story. Getting married or getting a car or getting something, that's a great story. But let's be good about telling the greatest story that's ever been entrusted to us, that's ever existed. He asked us to tell it, and only use words when necessary. Thank you.